welcome back to the garage. So we have a ton of little things to do this week in preparation of moving forward. I've taken and dropped off everything to be powder coated. So all of our small brackets and accessories and things like that. Heater box cover, hood hinges, battery tray, the latch and hood support, just all that stuff, right? Basically anything small that's under the hood. We also have a bunch of other little things to finalize on the truck, and that's what we're going to do. So I've been working on the exhaust today. I took and I cleaned up all these brackets and gave them a fresh coat of paint. Right now that I had everything apart, it made sense to do it then. And I've got the new rubbers here to go in them. And here's one of the old ones. So in the rear, they have kind of like a welded nut almost on them. So I had to cut all that crap off and then remove our severely deteriorated isolator. And now we're ready to reassemble that, and I'll put a bit of anti-seize on the bolts where they go through these little sleeves just to prevent any corrosion from that. And then we'll move on to our next task. Okay, so I've been working on the battery cables here, and I started down here at the bottom where I took off all this old insulation. And what I found was some pretty nasty corroded connections, right? So I went ahead and I cut those off and I crimped new connectors on, and then we've heat shrunk the ends here, and I've rewrapped the ends of the harness. Now what I'm doing is I'm cleaning up the connectors and everything up here. Like this one's okay, and this wire is okay, which is more important to this conversation, because as I went through here, this is what I found on this positive wire. Now hopefully we can focus in on this, but this is what I like to call the green monster. Now you get a bit of corrosion inside the wire, and you've completely changed the impedance of this wire. So let me cut this out and I'll show you what it actually looks like. So with the insulation peeled back, this is what we're looking at. Now some of these wires are actually eaten all the way through, which this would definitely cause a connection issue for us. So what we'll do is I've cut it off. I've got the correct 10 gauge wire here, and we'll just add to this wire and replace that section. So I've talked about it before, but having this manual really is handy when you're this far into a truck. So our battery cable routing. So this shows, of course, our 2.5 liter truck, and up top here is our truck. This one's for an LLV. But as you can see, it shows where all of the clips go that retain the harness, where the wires go, and it shows us where all the ground cables go, where all the positive cables go, where everything here goes. So it's super, super handy, right? Okay, we're going to cover something that probably is not as common knowledge as it once was. And that is taking apart these old GM steering columns that have the lock plate inside them. You of course have to take it apart to get this old broken ignition cylinder out of here so we can put the other one in it, which I did pull the other one out of the other column already. Like I said, I wanted to use this one. So we're going to go ahead and take this column apart in order to install that. First thing you're going to do is pull off the horn ring. Well, horn center, I should say. So in these ones, see, they just have these retaining rings, right? So you take that and you just kind of pop it out. Now we're going to unplug the horn wire, and that's the horn center out. So next thing we're going to do, I usually come in here, and you can remove this wire. All you do is push in, turn, and pull, and it comes out of here like that. Let's get that out of our way. Now there's a clip in here, and I wanted to come in here and show you this clip. You have to remove that clip before you take the nut off. The nut's a 13/16, and there's this little clip here. I usually just take a small screwdriver and just slip it off, and that's exactly what we'll do to remove it. So with the clip removed, we're going to take the nut off here. I'll remove it with an impact, but I won't install it with one. To pop the steering wheel off, you're going to need a gear puller, or sometimes they call it a bolt grip puller, and you'll need a set of 5/16 bolts. And then you just kind of put that in there so it's snug against it. Okay. And that's the steering wheel off. Next thing we're going to remove is the turn signal stock. So I'll show you how that comes off. You're going to take it, you're going to push in, you're going to rotate, twist, and it's going to come out like that. Okay, now we're going to be at the lock ring. So it's hard to see, but that's the actual lock ring right there. Just you can see the split of it right there. So we actually have a tool to take this off. Okay, so the tool we're going to use is a GM lock ring remover. So we're going to take it, it goes in here and basically presses on it. And what happens is, as you tighten it down, it'll actually push against the spring that's in here. And it will push it back so that you can go ahead and gain access to that lock ring there. Now what I usually use is a combination of a couple different picks. Because what I do is I try to get in here and I lift the end of it up. And this is probably the worst part of doing this. So I lift the end up, I take my pick which has a hook, slide it behind it, so now I have a hold of it. And then what we do is we go around and just kind of get the rest of the clip to lift up. Because once it does lift up, you're laughing. I'm trying to do this in kind of an awkward position so I don't block your view, but we're just about there. Be careful you don't damage the clip if you can help it, because you will need to reuse it. Okay, so with that up here, now we can take back our tool off. That. Now I'll take that lock ring off. We can slide this guy off. And we can slide off our turn signal switch here. Slide our spring out of the way. And the next thing you're gonna have to do is, so in order to gain access to the ignition switch, we have to remove this screw, and we have to take out the 3 that hold the signal switch in. And then we also have to undo, where is it, the hazard switch here. So I'll show you how to do all that. We'll just go step by step here. Okay, first things first, we're going to take our Phillips, which is here somewhere. There it is. And we're going to remove this screw right here. This is what actually holds the end of the signal switch in. So we'll take it off, and this little bracket will pop out of here. There's a little detent it sits in, just so you know. And we'll begin taking the signal switches out, because we're going to have to remove the signal switch screws, in order to gain access to the ignition switch. There's 3 of them. They're all number 2 Phillips. Okay, now we'll take out the number 1 Phillips that holds the hazard switch in. Now, one thing to remember is once you have the lock ring out, the actual shaft of the steering column can move, so you got to be careful. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take and just kind of gently shove the wiring in here a little bit, because by doing so, as you can see, it's going to try and push this out for us. Now you're going to have to push down where the hazard switch is, like that. And by doing so, you can now get in here and just kind of gently pull your switch out of the way. Assuming it doesn't get hung up on anything, which it probably will. Usually does. There we go. With that pulled back out of the way here, we'll actually be able to, let me change how I have the camera sitting here, sorry. With that pulled out of the way, what we can do now is, oh look, we're missing a clock spring. There should be 2 clock springs in here. We can go ahead and pull this back like this. You can see the 2 horn contact switches here. But what we're looking for is this bolt right here. This one right here is what holds the ignition cylinder in. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can get something to point to it. Right there. This one right here with the R on the head of it. So what we're going to do is, let me find a screwdriver. I'm going to go in here, undo this screw here. We're going to pull out this damaged ignition cylinder. Okay. Now you may or may not have to get a screwdriver down in the ignition cylinder and give it a turn if yours is completely destroyed like mine is. Okay. Now what we have to do is try and get this sucker out of here. Okay, so this is why I wanted to change my ignition cylinder, obviously. You can see it was just destroyed. So, that's why we have the other one. So we're going to use this one instead. So reassembling goes a lot easier. basically we just take and line everything up and slide the cylinder back in here, which is hard to do with one hand. Let me put the camera down. Okay, so the next thing we have to do once our cylinder is back in here is take and reassemble all this stuff. So get it to line up. Has to be in the run position. Let me just put this in here. Okay, hold on here. Okay, what you gotta do is kind of play with it a little bit until it finds its happy spot. Once you find its happy spot, your ignition cylinder is back in its home. Okay, so now we gotta put all this stuff back in. Basically in reverse of how we took it out. Okay, so here's my donor column. Notice how there's 2 clock springs? So for sure the column in this truck here would not cancel properly when you turn the signal on. So we'll steal a clock spring out of here and we'll put it in this column and then we can reassemble it. Okay, there's our clock spring replaced. Now assuming that you don't have a donor column like I did, you can buy new clock springs, and in all honesty I think they're a few cents a piece. They're really not that expensive. So with those back together in there. Okay, so all that back together, we'll put this guy over there like that, where it belongs. We'll grab the lock plate. Now the lock plate has a master spline, so it only goes on one way. Okay, so with it lined up on there, we're going to take our lock ring tool again, and we'll back it off a whole bunch. And we'll go like this. Oh, don't forget your lock ring. Put your lock ring over here. Take our lock ring tool, get it started on here. Usually go all the way to the bottom of the threads to protect them from me doing anything stupid. Okay, get the lock ring started on there. Now we'll just take and we'll gently push this back down in where it belongs. Like that. There's our groove exposed. We'll take our snap ring now, and we will just push it down until it kind of lines up. Again, the right tool for the job goes a long way. I didn't get to do a whole lot of these in my career until I was playing with cars of my own. Because by the time I came into doing my apprenticeship, pretty much everything I was dealing with had airbags and actual clock springs. But I still got to work on some old stuff that had this kind of setup, so that's how I learned. So just like that, that's our steering column put back together. And we're ready for a steering wheel whenever we make that decision. Now, over the years, GM had a couple different versions of these windshield washers, or wiper stocks, whatever you want to call it. They had chrome ones, they had regular ones, but you'll notice both of these are for 2-speed wipers without intermittent, which is what my truck has. So we'll probably put the black one back on. You'll notice that if we go like this and we steer, it pops it back into the center position. Ready? Up, go left, we come back, it pops back to center, come back, click, back where it belongs. So that's good. Clock spring works now. Okay, the conclusion to our steering column restoration. I've taken and cleaned it and painted it and made it pretty again so that it is ready to go back into our truck. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at now. I've taken and painted it all, and we now have a functional turn signal switch. We now have a functional ignition cylinder with keys that match everything else that we need. So overall, I would say this was something resembling a success. So with that done, I've been working up front here, kind of getting everything cleaned up and put back together. So I got my starter cables and battery cables all put back on here with new clips. Turns out if you're doing a GM, you can buy one of these clip assortments fairly inexpensive from either eBay or Amazon, or places like that. I mean, it's straight offshore, but the difference is you get this whole set for about $20 Canadian versus buying one of these from the dealership for $5. So you know what, I'm willing to use offshore stuff when it comes to parts like this. So I get that stuff, and I've gone through and kind of tidied up everything under the hood here. The computer plug is in the firewall now. Wire harness is now laced across the back here. It's now attached to the firewall up here. I got a lot of that stuff done. I ended up, I touched up everything in the front suspension here. I decided to paint the calipers. So here's the thing about painting calipers. I don't like painting calipers. And I don't mean I don't like painting them. I don't like painting them red. I don't like painting them blue. I don't like painting them bright colors normally. That being said, in the case of this truck, the bottom half of the truck will be red. Well, bottom quarter, I guess. So, with that in mind, and the fact that you can see the wheels, or see the caliper, through the wheels, I decided that I would break my own rule and I would paint them red. So that's what I've done. I took them off, I took them apart, and I painted them red and then reassembled them. So that was one of my projects this week. Basically, I'm just kind of doing little things while I wait for stuff to come back from being powder coated. Like I said, I can't really do anything body-wise until I get the doors back from sandblast. Although, now it's looking like I may not use them. I kind of have a line on a set of southern doors. We'll see how that works out, though. I'm only really looking at them because they're fairly inexpensive. So we'll see whether it's cheaper in the long run to buy the southern doors, or if we're just going to body work and repair our doors. Either way, we'll have doors at some point in the near future. So like I said, I've been picking away at little stuff. Like I got the cover piece that goes on the steering box now, because the bottom half of the column slides down over that. I've been picking away at, like I said, harness is now attached up here. Calipers over on this side now. I've been kind of figuring out the brake lines and everything. My plan for this coming week is going to be a big one. I want to get the majority of what is on the firewall installed. So what I mean by that is all the stuff like the speedometer cable where it goes through the firewall. I want to put the clutch master on. Actually, I would like to put that together and bleed it so that the clutch actually is functional, but we'll see how far we get with that. But I'd like to get all the other stuff on the firewall, just all the little bits and pieces, like the ground that comes from the back of the cylinder head here up. I'm gonna have a look at the wiper motor and see how it is, maybe test it. I'm hoping to get the parts back from powder coat. You know, like I'm gonna put the park brake cable through the firewall, because basically I think what we're gonna do is from here forward, there's not gonna be much going on inside the cab as far as paint and body and all that stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint the inside of the sheet metal here in the back of the cab. So I'll paint it, I'll clear it, and once that's done, we will basically just be at the point where the only thing left to do then will be to go ahead and start assembling stuff inside, because from there what I can do is mask the windshield opening, I can mask the door openings, I can mask the rear window opening, and everything will stay out of the cab. And it gives us an opportunity to actually get some stuff assembled and functional on the truck. Because I would like to put the heater box back in. I would like to put the steering column and pedals in. I'd like to put the fuse box in. I'd like to put all the shifter stuff together and just get it so that we're a little bit closer to having a functional truck. So I know, kind of boring, but hopefully the steering column stuff was interesting to someone, and hopefully somebody can use that if they have to change out either an ignition cylinder or turn signal switch, or even if you got a tilt column and you have to get in there to tighten up the tilt bolts, because that's actually why those columns usually get loose. And that's actually why I had the tool in the first place, because I used to tighten up a lot of those. That was pretty common on GMs with Saginaw tilt columns. So hopefully all that stuff's of use to you. And hopefully you've enjoyed the rest of this. And of course, we're going to continue to move forward with the truck because, well, it's what we do. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. Oh, and one more thing. Happy St. Patrick's Day.